just based on the opening, it is love is something that all parents are innately supposed to have for their children, but you can't uphold your child when they're wrong. And we're gonna have to allow the Rev to give us the spiritual piece, because when wrongs do occur, and they do in this life,
Okay.
judgment
I'm
judgment is
gonna get
not.
started now. This particular video, I watched a video of the timeline, and I can't pull it up from Bigo from for some odd reason. So I grabbed this one. I'm hoping this one works for what I need it to work for. You know, Bigo acts really crazy when it comes to showing YouTube stuff. So let's keep our fingers crossed that this one worked.
Sunday evening, just 4 or 5 hours before the killings, OJ Simpson and his ex-wife Nicole attend a dance recital for their daughter. Later that night, Nicole dines at a Brentwood neighborhood restaurant with her children, with friends, but without OJ. Restaurant workers say Nicole accidentally leaves a pair of glasses behind. Ronald Goldman, a 25-year-old waiter at the restaurant and a friend of Nicole's, volunteers to drop them off. At 9:45, he leaves the restaurant for her Brentwood townhouse. There, sometime between 10 and 11 o'clock Sunday night, according to unnamed sources, someone stabs Ronald Goldman and Nicole Simpson to death. The Simpsons' 2 children are asleep inside. One of O.J. Simpson's attorneys says the killer was not O.J.
At the time that this murder took place, OJ was at home awaiting to get into a limousine to take him to the airport.
About an hour after the killings, O.J. takes an overnight flight to Chicago and checks into this hotel early Monday morning. Just 2 hours later, Los Angeles police call him in Chicago, notify him of the killings, and O.J. flies right back. He returns to his Brentwood mansion, and almost immediately, police handcuff him. They take him to headquarters for 3.5 hours of questioning and then release him.
Everyone is a witness at this point. No one has been arrested. No one has been charged.
But on Tuesday, unnamed sources tell the Los Angeles Times that O.J. is a suspect in the killings, the only suspect. The sources say it appears Ronald Goldman put up a fight before being killed, perhaps scratched Simpson. The sources say police found a bloody glove at Simpson's mansion and that it matches a second glove found near the bodies. They report blood on his driveway, blood in his car, blood on pillowcases in his Chicago hotel. The reports anger Simpson's attorney.
His wife has been murdered. He comes back to Los Angeles to provide any input that he can to law enforcement, and now rumors and speculation somehow have him involved with this tragedy.
More than 100 reporters and camera people surround Simpson's mansion on Wednesday, but somehow Simpson slips out to visit his children and attend a private service for his ex-wife. The family of Ronald Goldman calls a press conference. They want the world to know their son was more than just a waiter.
I love my son dearly.
And we're going to miss him a lot.
And we'll miss him.
Yesterday, Ronald Goldman is buried in the Agoura Hills. And yesterday, as speculation about Simpson's imminent arrest increases, he attends his ex-wife's funeral. He stands next to Nicole's family as Nicole's casket is wheeled by. He holds hands with his children and gives them a kiss. Randy Shandabell for the 10 o'clock news.
Why is there 3 minutes left of this video? Hold on, let me see if it covers something else. Oh, I guess it's just a little bit more about his life or something.
Football, yeah. We played football and stuff, professional football.
Yeah, I'm aware.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah, I know he won the Heisman, and yeah, he went to USC. I know. Yeah, I know that. But this isn't going to be a story about OJ's life. So you see the video. right away there are some issues that are clearly obvious, right? So back then, um, we didn't really know a lot about forensics, right? It's not as sophisticated as it is then. So those of us in the public, we didn't know anything about transference or anything like that. We're like, how he gonna get, commit a murder that heinous with that many stab wounds and then an hour later get on a
Purple.
plane?
I don't
Huh?
mean to interrupt you, but box three, I need you to either lower the volume or go on mute because you have feedback coming in. It's gonna mess up the audio.
You might be able to switch boxes. That might fix it. Box 3, Mr. Alvin,
Yes.
would you be able to switch to another box from box 3?
Nah, I would by doing it, but I don't know how.
Just
Oh,
hit
just
the
click
plus
any
sign
one
on
of the
another
other
box.
click any one of the other plus signs that are open. You could even go back once you do it. There we go. See if that fixed it. Still got feedback? We're good.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Okay, I don't hear any feedback. Do you guys hear any feedback?
None here.
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay.
Wait, really
So right after,
quickly. Um, uh, repeat the last two sentences so we can edit all of this up.
I don't remember what my last two sentences were, but um, I'll just start over. Back then, DNA wasn't as sophisticated as it is now. So the public didn't understand or know anything about transference and this, that, and the third. And, it comes out that he is in this hotel and they find some blood in it. And just the common sense is, we knew that there had been multiple stab wounds and it was a bloody scene. How you gonna get on a plane and an hour later and end up, you know, transferring blood on a pillow? It just didn't make any sense, right? Yeah, of course, the argument was, well, he changed his clothes, he did this, that, and the third. It just still didn't make sense to a lot of us that that was what happened. There were a lot of discrepancies from the beginning. So, for those of you who don't know, I grew up in Southern California, and at the time of the murder, I was 24, or 23. The murder happened in June, so I was 24. I turned 24 that May. So, I was invested in what was going on, and it was on a lot of our news channels. There was a lot of local news that all of us were privy to, that the nation wasn't privy to, right? KTLA, Channel 5 is my favorite radio TV station to this day. They have an app. If you want to know what's going on in the Southland, you need to get the KTLA app. They tell you everything. Anyway, so, we've got this issue, and we're trying to figure out, well, how did this even happen? And we Southern Californians, we know how racist the police department is, right? Um, Especially the divisions that were involved in this particular incident. We knew, and even to this day, they're pretty racist. We knew that this division, these two divisions, had a history of racist activity. So a lot of us are skeptical from the beginning. Now, a lot of it, there was a lot of talk about, well, eventually there was a lot of talk about it being the cartels and this whole Colombian necktie thing, which somebody will have to correct me, but I guess it's when they slit your throat and put your tongue through it. Isn't that gross? We're like, come on now. It was really sensationalized on both sides. So OJ is immediately a suspect, as you saw from the timeline, and he lawyers up quick. But what people don't realize is that next day, Jason lawyered up too. Why? Why would Jason need attorneys? And a high-powered attorney firm at that? I don't think for a second they thought that they were going to look at Jason, because they always had their eyes strictly on AJ. I'm sorry, OJ. So why would Jason have to lawyer up to the public? That's the question. But to those of us who are local, we knew there was an issue with Jason. Jason had been arrested for assault. He had a horrible, horrible temper. There's dozens of stories floating around anecdotally, before the murders and after the murders, about Jason's behavior. Now, later on, we learned that he has what they call Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde syndrome. He has uncontrollable rage that comes out like that. So much so that they put him on, I think it's Depakote. I don't know how to pronounce that name, but it's basically a mood stabilizer. Jason was known to pop off. He had an assault case from an old girlfriend, and he had an assault case from one of his old bosses. In both cases, he drew knives on these people. Now there's conflicting evidence, or a conflicting narrative of how badly he harmed his ex-girlfriend. Some people say, he almost killed her. Other people say he just severely beat her. But there's that. Jason was put into a California military school to kind of straighten him out, or try to straighten him out. I think it was called Carlsbad. It's a military school that serves both the Army and the Navy. It's just a boarding school. It's different now. It's different from, the Army Navy school, like Annapolis. It's different than that. That's a college I'm talking about. This is like a boarding school for teenagers. That's where he went to school in an attempt to straighten him out. Now, some people who believe in the Jason theory, like I do, go a step further, where I'm not going to go. There was when OJ and his first wife, they had 3 kids: Arnell, Jason, and then a younger girl named Erin, who tragically passed away due to drowning. The thoughts about Jason's involvement in that are way too salacious for me to repeat. But some people will go as far as to implicate him in that situation. I'm not going to do that. So at any rate, Jason doesn't have an alibi for that night. Jason is a sous-chef, so he knows how to use a knife. Jason's job had a punch clock. I don't know if y'all are old enough to know, or too young to know what a punch clock is, but you had a time card. You would stick it in a slot. It would punch the time in. You'd take it back, punch the time out. So normally his time card is punched electronically or mechanically. It wasn't electronic. But on the night of Nicole's murder, it was handwritten. Why is that? All of a sudden, somebody is handwriting his time in. That doesn't make any sense. Now there is speculation about what set him off to begin with. I don't know if I believe that, but I also don't know how the mental issue he has works. Speculation is that Nicole and the family were supposed to come to the restaurant that he worked at for dinner, and they went to a different restaurant, and that's what set him off. Now, me personally, that's pretty minor. I mean, you gonna kill 2 whole people because they didn't come to your restaurant? I can imagine he made a big thing about it. My stepmom's coming, my dad might be coming, this, that, and the third, kind of like, a celebrity thing. Maybe they had made a special meal or special accommodations, in anticipation, and she didn't show up and didn't tell him. that's not enough for me to go out and kill somebody. And like I said, I don't know the depths of what this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde syndrome. That was my own child calling. Um, so I don't know. I don't know if that's enough to set him off or not. Maybe. I know that the incidents that I know of, but was not involved in, so I can't really say for certain. But I do know that he had several dust ups from his violent behavior, not just the two that I'm aware of him having police action on. But it was known that he had a pretty bad temper and was always fighting. So to kind of tie a bow on where we are right now, his alibi for that night was he was at work, except for his time card had his time written in when every other time it had been stamped in. He had a violent past. He was medicated to quell that violence. He had 2 cases out on him for assault. His history of his violent temper, and the day after the murder, he lawyered up. So I'm gonna pause there before I continue with my narrative and see if anybody has some questions or pushback or whatever.
Definitely. My first question: do we remember what was his age at the time specifically?
He was 24. Well,
24.
let me qualify that. He was born in 1970. I don't know his exact birth date, and I haven't been able to find it. So he was 23 or 24.
Mm-hmm.
So the Jason guy, I mean, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was just gonna say really quickly, when we're looking at motive, that the one that you said that was originally suggested definitely seems weak. I mean, not coming to somebody's restaurant, definitely not a reason to off them, celebrity or not celebrity. I mean, that sounds a little kooky. But I'm sorry, what were you gonna say, Alvin?
The guy you
Yes, it
called
does.
Jason, was that,
Oh,
what is
sorry.
it? Was that her boyfriend?
No, Jason is OJ's eldest son.
Okay. Okay. Oh, they accused his
Yes.
son? I don't know. Man, wow.
No,
I didn't
they
know, catch
didn't.
that.
They didn't accuse his son. So yes, Rep, I agree that that's just a very minute reason to kill 2 people. But I also admit that I don't know the depths of this disorder that he has. It's a disorder. It's classified as a disorder. And like I said, the colloquial term for it is Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. So I don't know what it takes to make this type of person go off. I just don't. Apparently they have hallucinations, they hear voices, stuff that Jason had complained about, and that's in documentation. They kind of get paranoid and they have a very, very violent temper, and often it's a hair trigger temper. So, not being a psychologist, not have ever talked to him, you know, I don't know if that's the reason that he snapped. I don't know if that's enough of a reason for him to snap, assuming that he's the person who did it in my scenario. But I don't know. Any other questions?
Now, when we start thinking about the lawyering up factor, I mean, let's think about that for a second. They're as OJ, they're going to look at you as you're the husband. Why
Mm-hmm.
would he lawyer up his son? I mean, that's definitely unprecedented.
Exactly.
It definitely,
Exactly. Especially when
but I
all
want
the
to say
room
it's
was on him.
unprecedented,
Go ahead.
except for the fact that when you're dealing with people with a lot of money, I don't know. People do some weird things when they know they have the revenue to make sure that you're covered in a worst case scenario. Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because all eyes were on OJ from the get. He's in Chicago. He flies back right away. We just looked at the timeline, and they got him in handcuffs within 3 hours. They laser focused on him, and I mean, we all know that in cases of like domestic violence and stuff, the husband is always the first suspect, right? Or the boyfriend or whatever. So it's not out of the ordinary that they laser focused on OJ. But knowing that, why was Jason lawyered up?
Well, one of the reasons why it was lowered up because anytime there's a homicide, everybody is suspect within that family. And there was footage of when OJ came back, film footage, cameras from home or whatever, that saw that he had interacted with his son at the car, and nobody was able to ascertain what that discussion was, but he seemed to be upset when he was talking with his dad. So, speculation is, he was gonna, get revenge or whatever. We don't know, but everybody is suspect when there's a murder.
I will get to what you said about the discussion between him and Jason, but in situations where a spouse or a partner is killed, not everybody is suspect. They always hone in, on the partner, be it husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. That's just how they do it because statistically, that's the most likely person. Your partner is the most likely person to have killed you. Go ahead, Hebrew.
But they still investigated. Everybody's a suspect in the family when it comes down to a murder. Everybody, because you never know who it is. It's just not OJ. They can look at their girlfriends, mother, father. They got to look at everybody, not just
except for they didn't. But they didn't.
That's
the whole point. They should have, but they didn't. They stayed laser focused on him the entire time.
You know why, don't you? Because y'all police department got the worst history of racism. It is LAPD, and the guy Mark Furman, I seen everything. I watched the whole thing through it. He is racist. He see you riding with a black man and a black woman and white woman riding together. He said he will pull them over and give them tickets, and he hate interracial relationships. So that's the head investigator.
You're jumping ahead a little bit, but you're also making my point, right? If they knew that they were going to laser focus on OJ for whatever reason, be it statistics, racism, whatever. Why did Jason lawyer up the next day? Nobody else in his family lawyered up. I mean, if we're going to look at the whole family, we could. I mean, Arnell couldn't. She's a woman.
So-called black man in America. You better.
Okay, King, let me finish my sentence. Let me finish my narrative. His best friend didn't lawyer up, and he was over at the house all the time. The one who was with him in the Bronco, he didn't lawyer up. It could have easily been him.
He already had a lawyer.
There were already people, but he didn't. There were already enough people circling around OJ that could have potentially did it for whatever reason, and they didn't lawyer up. The police were always laser focused on OJ. Now, understand, I'm not trying to make excuses for OJ at all. I don't like the man, never have. But I'm just saying that I believe that his son was involved and that his son was the one who did it. That's the case that I'm trying to make.
That's what you mean. Oh, okay, but oh man, being a so-called black man in America during that time when that happened and stuff. You would lawyer up your son, regardless, somebody around me, because you already getting accused. And then, like I said, you got the worst police department it is, man. This guy's, they're racist. Not only OJ, but look at Rodney King. They got a history of doing stuff, covering up stuff in Los Angeles. And so why would you want somebody like that over that case in general? If I don't like white people, and you put me on the case like that, I'm gonna lie on every black folks I can.
Right. The point that I'm making that you're missing
Yeah.
is they were always from the get focused on OJ. Within 3 hours of Nicole dying, OJ was their main suspect, even though he was in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
They never were, and that's part of the problem. They never looked at anybody else. Never.
Oh, yeah. Well, and later on in the case, they
So
started
it's
looking into about people. Yeah,
so
like
it's
the
just no, I
cartel.
don't.
She was known to be the cocaine cowgirl in Hollywood. She dealing with cartels and stuff. She seen that she borrowed keys of cocaine from them, and then
And
then
see
then
that,
paid
but
it back.
see that, I think that's a red herring. I've always felt that was a red herring. That's what I was talking about, the so-called Colombian necktie.
She
They're,
in Hollywood. You from
they have
California?
never come up with any evidence.
Okay,
They have never
but
come up with any evidence
let me ask you a
that
question. You from
this was a
California?
cartel. That this was
Okay,
a
you from California?
cartel.
You from California? Oh, go ahead. Go
Hebrew.
ahead.
We both can't talk. You can't keep interrupting
Okay,
me.
go
You
ahead.
can't.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm from Southern California. There's never, and I'm local. So there's a lot of stuff that we were hearing locally that people weren't hearing nationally. There's never been any real evidence that this was a cartel hit. Never. It was just
Well,
something they
now
threw out there.
the only difference would be that when she died, the way that the murder occurred, they said that was a professional hit. They said
It
her
was a
head was
professional.
slivered off, like somebody
Yeah.
who.
So
I mean, it was
I
a
think
grizzly
Charge
murder.
yourself, nigger.
we're gonna have to. Oh, you're on YouTube, sir. By the way, Cletus, you're
I
being
don't give a
recorded
shit,
on
nigger.
YouTube. So anyway, we're gonna have to start raising our hands because I can't have everybody talking at once. So let's start raising our hand. If you guys could do that, that would be helpful. Again, as a sous chef, Jason knew how to use a knife. Let's not forget that. I see you, King Hebrew. So was it professional or was it just very, very violent? A very, very violent cut that nearly decapitated her. I'll let you go in a second, King Hebrew. Also, Ron Goldman showed evidence of fighting for his life. His hands, his knuckles were bruised. This, that, and the third. There was not one mark on OJ. Not even a scratch. Go ahead, King.
Yeah, and so he was a black belt in karate, to my understanding too. So
Correct.
and then to this, the lawyers was putting out this point right here. She was dealing with the cartel. They got pictures of her with cartel dealers. That federal government know these people are kingpin drug dealers. She hugged up between them, Colombians back then, and she had cocaine parties in Hollywood, California. Everybody, who for people know about Hollywood? A bowl of cocaine on top of the table was just like some grapes to them Hollywood actors and stuff. That was going on in California back in the 80s when the crack epidemic and powder epidemic was going on. And she was known. Her friends came on TV and said, personal friends said, "Hey, she have keys of cocaine in the house. We call her the cocaine queen of party in California." That is a fact. If you don't pay people their money back, they will send a cartels do not play no game. They will come and slaughter you, cut your throat, and do what you do. If OJ didn't have no blood on him, no scratches, no bruising, but the other dude was fighting somebody. And that was a professional hit. They admitted it's a professional hit. OJ couldn't have did that. He's an actor and a football player. How you gonna beat up a black belt in karate? The white boy was a black belt in karate. He'd have whooped OJ butt. But they ain't telling you about that because I'm gonna end my plane, land my plane. Because that Mark Furman was a racist. He told you, he said, "I hate to see black men with black women. If you come on a scene like that, if I hate to see white boys with black women, I'm gonna sabotage that daggone scene, that whole crime scene." And see, that's how racism is in America. It's still around.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Alvin.
No, I think your concerns about the son, if we were trying to find out, come up with a reason on why he was suspect, you talked about the extensive pathology that he had with his mental health. So, any good investigator has got to follow that up. And this wasn't just an average murder. This was the murder of the century, as they framed it. That OJ was a big personality. I mean, Heisman Trophy winner, Super Bowl, and I mean, he was a broadcaster. Somebody had to pay for that crime, and like you say, OJ's his alibi was pretty solid. I mean, so I can understand why the son, because of the problems he had with his behavior, um, that they would have been concerned about whether he played a role in it or not. But I think
Well, I don't know. It was a completely different law firm. It was a high-powered law firm. And again, their focus always was immediately on OJ. Okay, so we've gotten that out of the way. I'm going to share a few things. So we all know that there was a knit cap found at the scene. It had blood, DNA in it, and it had animal hair. Jason was known to like to wear those type of knit caps. Let me go ahead and see if I can. Since Bigo's stopping me from posting pictures again. Okay, let's see. So this picture is a picture of Jason with a similar knit cap. Now, having a knit cap in and of itself does not indict anybody, right? I mean, I have knit caps, but that's a picture of Jason with a knit cap that is similar to the knit cap that was found at the scene that had animal and human DNA and animal DNA. And you see, he's got his dog right there in the picture. Does that indict him for murdering his stepmother? No, but it adds another layer of another little clue, possibly. And the blood was never proven to be OJ's blood. I see you, Rep. The blood was never proven to be OJ's, and the blood was and the animal hair was never proven to be the same hair from the animal that was on the premises. Remember, there was a guy named Kato Caitlin who lived there, and he had an Akita, which is a breed of a dog. They ruled out that hair was, well, I won't say they ruled out. They never said that was Akita hair. They just said it was unidentified. To the public, they never said that they conclusively ruled out Kato Caitlin's dog, but they also didn't rule it in. Go ahead, Rep.
I never understood the where the knit hat came in, because I just remember seeing like Johnny Cochran in Case, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but him just saying, like if you're gonna wear a knitted hat to a murder, it's not really it's not like a pull shiesty, you know what I'm saying? It's not like you're not pulling it over your face, so it's like, why would that even be like an accessory toward the murder? You know what I mean? It just be something that's almost coincidentally there. I didn't see the rationale.
Well, I'm pulling back from memory. I think it was either found in the car that had the blood in it, or was found discarded at the scene. It was just, they collected it as evidence. I believe, I'll double check it, but I believe that it was found nearby the actual crime scene, and so they collected it as evidence. I don't know. Maybe when Ron was fighting for his life, he snatched it off. Or maybe when the person was running, it fell off.
It just get to the point of right back who found it.
But Jason loved where there's plenty of pictures. You gotta raise your hand.
Oh, I'm trying to raise my hand.
There's plenty of photographic images of Jason wearing knit hats. That was his thing. And again, wearing a knit hat, I wore knit hats. That's not something that you can accuse somebody of murder just because they like a certain type of hat, except for when I see you, King. Except for when the type of hat that you prefer to wear and that you have one that looks just like it is found at a murder scene. Go ahead, King.
Like I say, I think it was a hitman, a hit on the young lady, his wife, because that's what professionals do. They do their research before they go murder somebody. They just don't go over and kill them out. Now they're professionals, and that was a professional hit. Period. And so, do they know his son might wear a hat like that and all this? Of course, they know that. They do their homework. That's what
You're welcome to your
killers do.
opinion. You're
That's what they
welcome to
do.
your opinion on that.
They do their homework and they come in and do stuff. They just don't go out and say, "Hey, you're gonna go kill somebody." No, they're professionals. They know what to do, and they know how to do all this right. And professionals are not going to leave no glove there and leave no evidence there like that. That was set on. That was set because Mark Furman know who OJ Simpson is, and you're talking about a time. It's a time in America. Racism is still here, and it was racist, and they proved that.
Okay,
I'm not
so
saying they proved that.
so King. Okay, so King. Yes, like I said, I was there. I mean, we don't have to keep going over and over about Mark Furman and how racist he is. I will submit for the record that Mark Furman was very, very racist, and so was LAPD, and so was the Rampart Division. I lived it.
Okay,
I
hold on.
will. I will submit to that. We know that.
But do you really know that with racist people, if they over a police department and you dealing with a man of color, him, a so-called black man, do you think they ain't gonna set
King
him up?
Hebrew, King Hebrew, King
Oh,
Hebrew.
okay. Go
Once again, I will emphasize that I grew up in that area. I am well
ahead.
versed on the racism coming out of Simi Valley, coming out of the Rampart Division, coming out the LAPD. Very well.
Okay.
I know they used to plant drugs on brothers. I understand when NWA is talking about fuck the police. I know exactly why. They would pull a brother over, steal everything that he has, and plant it on somebody else and keep the money.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I know how racist the LAPD is. The police chief at the time was Daryl Gates. Daryl Gates was heavily involved in the Watts riots, and he created a system which we now know as the SWAT team. And he did that to quell the black people who were participating in the Watts riots. That was in 1967. I know how racist the department is. We don't have to
Oh,
keep beating that horse. I got it. Okay, so let's wrap this up. We know that Jason's alibi was weak. We know he had a tremendous violent temper that he was taking medication for. We know that he lawyered up the next day. We've already disputed reasons why. He loved to wear the same type of knit hat that was found at the scene. We know that he had a dog and animal hair was found in that particular hat. And to our knowledge, we don't know if that hair came from Kate or Caitlin's dog or not. We also know that Jason was a sous-chef. A sous-chef is a person who's second in command. They do a lot of prep work. In kitchens they have people whose specific job is prep work, but you're going through the ranks. Obviously, you're gonna do some prep work. So he knew how to use a knife. And most chefs in their knife kit, I see you, Alan, in their knife kit have the type of knives that could decapitate somebody. They've got deboning knives. They've got knives that will go right through bone. They've got knives that are so sharp, just slice your finger off trying to cut a carrot. So we know that he has knife work skills. Conceivably, he has a knife kit. I don't know of any sous chefs that do not have a knife kit. It's part of that's part of their uniform, for lack of a better term. Most chefs carry, when I say carry, I don't mean carried around with them every single day, like car keys. But as part of their profession, most chefs have their own set of knives and they use only their knives. That's just a thing with chefs. Go ahead, Alvin.
I'm kind of unclear on what it is. You say you see the justification for why he was considered a suspect, but you don't understand why he was a suspect. I'm kind of confused why his son
What I'm
is relevant.
what I'm saying is that I believe that there is a case that could have been made in which Jason was the suspect.
Okay.
I believe that Jason did it, not OJ. And they never
Okay.
looked at Jason, despite all the circumstantial. I will agree that the stuff that I'm bringing up is circumstantial, but the circumstantial evidence. My personal feelings on it, I never believed that OJ did it directly, but I always believed he either knew who did it and or was there at the time. That's just been my personal belief.
Okay. Let me
I
ask you this.
remember,
Go ahead.
I also remember at the time when it was on the news watching Jason's behavior, and it was weird in a way to me. I was like, why is he acting like this? It was a little different than a son's concern for his father, right? And being upset for that. It was just it was off. You know, he was sweating profusely, he was pacing back and forth. He kept trying to say stuff, you know, you could see in the attorneys would kind of push him aside, you know, quiet him down, take him, you know, move him over to the side and have a conversation with him. The footage of him and his father discussing I don't remember what the location was, but just the heated discussion that they had. I don't read lips. They could have been talking about anything, but it seemed to me like every single time that Jason was within camera shot, they were surrounding him, trying to
He
keep
looked
him quiet,
agitated. You're right. He looked
pushing
agitated.
him,
My
pushing
my
him. I'm
question
not.
is
Wait, Alvin. Let me finish my sentence. Pushing
okay.
him aside, pushing him back. It just seemed like they were kind of putting some bubble wrap on him. Go ahead, Alvin.
I want to go ahead and finish your story. Were you through?
I
I didn't want
did.
to cut you off.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's why I said go
Yeah.
ahead. I finished.
Yeah. Those are concerns that I never pondered that. What I pondered was what with her reputation being the way that it was, where they said that she kept company with a lot of people and was had an active life, doing different things. Um, we never got a vaginal check from her. That was my concern. That that's something that would be germane in determining who dealt with her. Well, normally in a murder case like that, they always give you some kind of indications about a vaginal check on her because
This is the evidence of rape, but there was no evidence of rape.
we don't know
Well,
whether it was.
that's true. It was never publicly publicized that she was raped or that she had actively just had sex with Ronald.
But it was publicly understood that she was keeping company with OJ's buddies and gallivanting around the neighborhood, and she was in that home
Yeah,
and
but I mean,
driving the car and doing a lot of things. She wasn't a
maybe,
schoolgirl. She
maybe,
she
She was the cocaine girl of Hollywood, man. She had
oh
a coke. She
maybe.
had addiction. She had a bad addiction of cocaine. She hang with weird people, and her friends
King, you
told
didn't
on
raise
her.
your hand. King, you
Well,
didn't
I got
raise
to
your
raise my
hand.
hand. You make me raise my hand, but you don't make me a five. Come on now. I'm just saying
Alvin raised his hand. Look at it in the
Oh, I
comments.
thought. Oh, okay. I thought I raised mine earlier too. That's two on song. Okay, all right. I respect you, Pam.
Thank you. Um, I I see you. I'll get to you in a second. It's been my experience that they do vaginal swabs when there's evidence of rape. Also, given the timeline of the day, I haven't forgot about you, King. The timeline of the day, I don't feel like the timeline that they had of the incident um, warranted seeing if she had recently had sex. She had been with her kids. She'd been with her family out to dinner. She left the glasses. She went home with her kids, put them to bed. He stopped by with the glasses, and they were both murdered outside.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And
Go ahead, King. You wanted to say something.
Okay, she hanged around a lot of big time people. You talking about rich, super rich people, and OJ was in that category too, and that draws people towards you in Hollywood. Even kingpins, weed, cocaine dealers, and all this right here, illegal people, doing all kind of stuff. And everybody in Hollywood, as you know, is not actors. It's all types of people there, and so she deal with them. They
Like
showed that
everywhere.
on the media. Yeah, she deal with that. And the thing I know I'm being redundant, repeating is they showed her with cartel people. They showed her hanging out with one of the two big cartels the Fed looking at. And so these are the people she's getting her cocaine from. OJ got to pay for that. He paying for that. He's the money maker. She's just a waitress, bro. A waitress. What do you expect? And she got what's
At
already
that time,
she's already
at
got
that time
cocaine.
at
Both of
that
them was
time she's
cocaine.
at that time she's a divorced mother getting alimony and child support.
But she still was getting
So
cold though. I watched it.
here's what I
Let me plane. Let me land my plane. I watched
all
that
right.
whole thing. I watched everything. But listen, she was divorced. She still was on cocaine. Just because you're divorced don't mean you don't do cocaine. Okay? She was still the cocaine girl of Hollywood. And she was still getting credit from cocaine from Kingpin. And who had to pay that? OJ. If you don't pay it, they send their crew to get you. They don't care because your husband is a celebrity and you just a house mom. Cocaine do not discriminate against poor.
Okay.
It's going to poor people, everybody. And she was on it, and they proved that.
That wasn't my point.
I was saying
That
that's why
wasn't
they
my
hit her.
point. No, because you said that she was just a waitress, and I was pointing out at the time of her murder, she wasn't just a racist. And if
I know.
you're welcome to make the case that it was a cartel and that she was a cokehead and this, that, and the third. I don't think that that's particularly relevant to my opinion of the situation.
I
Because
understand your opinion. You put it on her son. That's what you just. This panel is about you putting it on your son. I mean, on his son.
Yeah.
Okay, but I don't. Some people on the panel don't think that it's his son. We can
And what
have
I'm
our own
saying to
opinion
you, we're
about
gonna have to agree to disagree on that because I just don't
everybody
feel
disagree
like
on it.
I feel like while and I remember when the whole Colombian necktie thing came out and all of that. I remember very vividly. I
So you don't
just
think the
feel like
Colombians could do something like that? You don't think the cartel would do something like that? If you owe them money, you think they won't send anybody after you? But
no,
I'm just saying. But
I do believe that there are situations in which they would go back to get their money. I do believe that there are situations for that. I don't believe that this was one of those situations. I just don't. Just like a
Oh,
lot of
you just
people
don't.
will believe that the theory that I'm putting forth is a bunch of bullshit.
Oh yeah, I
But
know. I understand.
what I'm doing is trying to make the case of how it could have potentially been Jason, somebody that nobody at the time was looking at. But in my research, so I have felt this way for almost 30 years. And as I'm researching this for this panel, I find out that I'm not the only person who feels this way. And I was genuinely surprised that there were a lot of other people out there, black, white, whatever. It's not just a bunch of white people trying to take a brother down. Black people too. There's a whole YouTube of it being hosted by a black man of why he thinks it was Jason.
Oh,
So
so it is a thousand centuries.
I feel like at the time of the murder, a lot of people explored the cocaine and cartel angle. That's why we know the phrase Colombian necktie, because they explored that, and a lot of people explored that, but nobody explored that it could potentially have been Jason, which is why we're talking about this right now. Not rehashing.
Let me say this way.
I'm not rehashing old
Okay.
theories. I'm bringing up a new theory.
Okay, then I understand. I don't know too much about that right there, so I would enjoy coming on your panel and stuff. I would see you some other time and stuff, but I got to move on because I don't know nothing about his son, Jason. I mostly was paying attention to what we're going with the cartel and the racist cop. So I'm about to bail out of this situation. You can go ahead and let you explain your theory about it. It's cool.
Okay, cool.
Nice
Thank
seeing you.
you.
All right.
Nice
All right.
seeing you
Peace.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I got a little derailed. I'm not sure where I'm at. Oh, I know where I'm at. Let me see if I can find the footage of the trial. It's gonna be tough finding search words that Bigo will allow on YouTube. Oh yeah, the one I had set aside does not. Let me try this one. The one I set aside, YouTube is. I mean, Bigo isn't letting me bring up.
Last night about this case and their theory and how it didn't make any sense and how it didn't fit and how something is wrong. It occurred to me how they were going to come here and stand up here and tell you how OJ Simpson was going to disguise himself. Was going to put on a knit cap and some dark clothes, and he was going to get in his white Bronco and this recognizable person and go over and kill his wife. That's what they want you to believe. That's how silly their argument is. And I said to myself,
Oh no, I'm sorry. This is the one
maybe
I
I
think
can
I need.
demonstrate this.
That's him putting on the glove. Or a simulation of not the actual one, I believe.
Can we ask him to straighten his fingers and extend them into the glove as one normally might put a glove on?
I object to this statements by counsel.
All right, he appears to have pulled the gloves on, counsel. All right, would you show that to the jury, Mr. Simpson, in that manner? Thank you. Other hand, please.
Can we ask him to make a fist with his left hand while the glove is on the right? Can we ask him to make a fist with his right hand while the glove is on the right?
He is doing both.
Can we ask him to grasp an object in his hand? A marker, perhaps.
All right, Mr. Simpson.
Okay. Now, why did I show that? I don't know what Jason's hand size is. I've never been in the same room as him, but what I do know, I'm going to share a picture. Oh, sorry, my TV just came on. What I do know is, and I will share a picture, is Jason right here. The picture I'm sharing in the comments. Jason appears to be smaller than his dad. Again, I don't have a ruler to measure his hands, but he's shorter and wider in stature. It's possible that his hands are smaller too. Definitively, no. I mean, genetics are genetics, but I feel like it warranted at least having Jason try on the gloves and see if they fit him. I mean, obviously his lawyers weren't going to do that. And OJ's lawyers weren't going to do that. But part of my reasoning on why Jason is should have been a potential suspect is the fact that, possibly those gloves would have fit on Jason's potentially smaller hands. I don't know. Something to think about. Questions? Okay.
This is really interesting because I've never heard this story before. I never looked it up. I never like, to be very honest, I never really cared. But it was, and I was just too young to like even follow the story. What year was this?
1994.
Yeah, I was too young. I wasn't paying attention to this at all. Can you say Blue's Clues? But what what I will say is that the things that you put forward has been something, right?
Something
The
to think
thing,
about.
yeah, and again, I don't know if this is a narrative that's been out there before because I came into this conversation completely blind. That's why I've been quiet. But it's just interesting, very, very interesting.
So, what I will say is that for years, up until I decided I was going to do this panel, I thought I was largely alone in my thoughts, right? Every now and again, I would see somebody pop up with Jason did it. But I recognize this is conspiracy theory. And so I just kept it to myself. I was like, Perp, you know what? This is just a conspiracy theory. You can let it play over on your head. And then when I was doing my research for this panel, that's when I found out that I am in no shape, form, way alone in this theory at all. And there are other people who have dug into it far deeper than I have. There was even a private investigator who did a whole ass book on it. And a lot of the stuff he lays out are some of the things that I thought about. But he has a lot more evidence to why it's Jason. I did not dig into that for several reasons. I wanted this to be what I thought and not have it influenced by what he wrote. You know, that's his evidence, that's his research. You know, I'm not going to piggyback on that. Um, and I don't know that I necessarily believe everything that he said because I haven't researched it. But he digs way, way deeper. He claims that he has the actual knife. I don't know. I'm not gonna touch that. Um, he has what appear to be medical records. He has what appears to be a diary by Jason. Um, and because I have no way of saying, you know, I have no proof that that's Jason's actual diary, and the passages that he wrote in that diary that lend more credence to him possibly being the murderer. I don't know, because I can't read all the stuff that Jason supposedly wrote that supports my theory without knowing if that's Jason's actual diary. This private investigator claims that all this stuff was in a storage facility, and that he bought it. So I don't know, you know, generally speaking, you know, storage units go up for auction when they're unpaid. So I don't even know how he got a hold of all this stuff. So um, I'm not gonna play around in all of his accusations. But the accusations that are similar across the board, where a lot of us believe that Jason did it, are a couple points. Um, all of us question the time card. All of us raised questions about the hat and his dog. All of us raised questions about his violent past. All of us, including just the fights he would get into, and the cases he had, the violent cases that he had against him, the assault cases that he had against him, and that he was on medication. Those are about the five things that we all agree upon. Um, as far as the medication goes, I did not witness him personally take it, But there was a lot of gossip and whatnot locally about his shenanigans that, over the course of my life when I was there, I read, heard, saw something about him having to be on medication. I can't tell you exactly what that was because I'm pulling from 30-year memories because it's literally been, 30 and a half years. I'm pulling from my impressions at the time, watching it because we were inundated with it in Southern California. It was everywhere. And I still have the chase on VHS because I used to tape soap operas and talk shows while I was at school. Sally Jesse Raphael, Ricky Lake, Montel Williams, Young and the Restless. But a lot of the talk shows came on KTLA. And so I'm thinking I'm taping, my talk shows for the day, and I'm actually taping whatever news thing is happening. So that happened to me with the Rodney King incident, the riots thereafter, and the OJ chase and his trial, because all that stuff was coming on KTLA during the day while I was at school and work. And then I would come home, thinking I'm going to sit down and watch today's episode of Sally Jesse Raphael, and I see OJ's dumbass going down the freeway at, whatever it was, 22 miles an hour. I don't remember what it was. But there's also speculation that low speed chase was also to give Jason and his lawyers time to calm him down, because this is pure speculation. At that time, Jason was becoming really agitated again, and he wanted to tell the truth. He wanted to take the fall for it. Well, not the fall for it. He wanted to admit his culpability and his behavior and the crime he committed. And all the lawyers were trying to keep Jason together so he wouldn't blow up everybody's case, because speculatively they believed in their hearts that they could get OJ off because they knew OJ didn't do it. They knew whatever evidence that the prosecution was going to throw at him, he could legitimately beat it, because they knew it was Jason and not him. It's easy to mount a defense that it may not be successful, but it's easy to mount a defense when you know for a fact your client is innocent. I mean, you still may end up in jail. That happens all the time. But they knew what they needed to do, and they knew what they can combat, because they knew that glove wasn't going to fit because they knew Jason did it. My opinion. Any questions? Okay, so I've gone through the timeline of her murder, and I've gone through why I feel Jason is the one who did it, allegedly. His past, the lawyers. I didn't believe then about the cartel. Even before I started really honing in on my thoughts on Jason, I didn't believe the Columbia necktie thing at all. I really didn't. Were the connection to the cartel, right? I still don't to this day. That doesn't mean that I don't believe that she had a drug problem. I mean, there's speculation that Jason was taking drugs starting at the age of 14, including cocaine. I don't know. A lot of people do cocaine. I mean, I don't know why. Just purely financial. I feel like, yeah, if you owe money, they'll step to you. But why would you kill that person? To me, just financially speaking, if somebody owed me a bunch of money, why would I kill them? I'm really not gonna get my money then. And why would I kill somebody who, supposedly has these cocaine parties that are well attended by half of Hollywood? I don't know. But, going off what King Hebrew said, that's a client base that I could get to. I would send one of my capos to these parties and just kind of mill around, all these people who clearly have drug habits and build up my client base. I mean, that's how I would do business. Then again, I'm not a cartel member. Maybe that's not up their alley. I would have potentially kidnapped her to force OJ to give me the money that she owed. I mean, there's all different ways that I could have, if I was running the cartels, there's all different ways that I could have approached the situation in order to get her to pay me the money that she owed me, and none of it goes to murder. Now, I could see a situation where if OJ was the one who was the drug addict and, owed all this money, how maybe killing her would make him straighten up and fly right. Hey, you're not going to pay, we're going to hurt your family. I could see that situation. But it makes no sense to me to kill somebody that owes you money, because then you'll never get the money. I could be wrong. But that's my opinion on that. So I don't know. Rep, you have any questions, any holes in my theory?
I don't know. You making a good argument. I'm gonna keep on saying it. At least for me, I don't have any questions, but you're making a good argument.
Okay. Well, then my work here is done. I mean, do I want, him to face any retribution at this point? No. And, OJ's gone now. So what's the point? Nobody, I feel for her family because I don't feel like they got justice. And for Ron Goldman's family, I don't feel that they got justice either. And God, my child. Um, so I mean, it is what it is. And my theory is not going to bring comfort to anybody, but it's just a theory.
Well, it's a tough piece to have the nation really transfixed for as long as that case went on, and it was something that was followed daily. And when the verdict finally was made, half of the country felt one way and half the country felt another way, and it was all basically on racial lines. It was just, as one of our um, congressmen said, "You want justice? How much can you afford?" And OJ had the money to get the best
Yeah.
representation, and he get the best representation that he could have had, and it
Yeah.
just felt the nation was paralyzed, and it's still a very, very, very sensitive issue on both sides because somebody died. A couple of people died, and loss of life over whatever the reason it is that they lost their lives. You have to have compassion for that person. They're never going to come back. But OJ paid a very heavy, heavy, heavy price. The public humiliation, the destroying of his legacy. They didn't sell his house; they bulldozed it down, and then ultimately he spent his last of his golden years, 10 years of his life, behind bars, not on a criminal case but on a civil case. So there was some level of justice, and we all are sitting on the sidelines. We have the right to have our own impressions of things. But OJ blessed young lady and took her life to another level. She started out just as any young woman who wasn't of means. She lived a very lucrative and prosperous life because of OJ Simpson. And for whatever reasons, when any relationship is severed, um, she went on living in that world, and she didn't have his support. And we only speculate. Also, we weren't there. We don't know. But sometimes when you have debt, and we're not talking about the $10, we're talking about thousands of dollars. Those folks, when they in the life, they don't buy a bag, they buy keys. And when you got tabs of 70,000 or 100,000 or whatever, and it's paid, and then you say I'm not paying it, and then you ask your husband or whatever, and he refuses, and you never know. But the bottom line is everybody felt a certain way about that case. That case is like they say they characterized it as the trial of the century, and it was. It really was, because we knew OJ was gonna go down. You know what I mean? And we definitely don't want him to have been. See, the thing that by going back and looking at it, it's very, very sensitive, because, like you say, he's gone now, and they're going. He was found innocent, and we had to live with that. We've had to live with all the other cases that people were found innocent. He went to was tried in a court of law and was found innocent. And what are we gonna do now? I mean, we can't nitpick it, because
So one of the things that I feel were missed back then and still are missed now, white America. So when they found him innocent, I was in the quad. No, not the quad. I was in the TV room with the
yeah,
rest of the students, and we all erupted
jumped up.
joyfully.
Yeah.
And I
And what
think
was that all
that
about? Mm.
so
Tell me
here's
why did it erupt like
well,
that?
I'm trying to get
Go
there.
ahead. Go ahead.
I think there was a misconception of why we rejoiced. We did not rejoice because we were happy that a white woman was murdered.
Absolutely
We
not.
were we rejoiced because for the first time, a black man, beat the system.
Yeah,
He had to have money to do it,
that's
but
right.
he did it. We spent all
Yeah.
these years, on the shit end of the stick when it came to the judicial system, especially in Southern California. In this case, black men just never got off for murder.
Right. Never.
Even when they, and I don't mean guilty black men, I mean innocent or guilty,
That's right.
black men, had to serve time. Plus, locally, we know how racist these police departments are in the LAPD and the crap that they pulled. There was a light shined on that with the whole Rodney King situation. Like I
Sure.
said,
Sure.
NWA been saying fuck the police, at that point for 7 or 8 years. So we knew that the system was rigged against us. And so, to see a black man beat the system, even though it was because he had the money for the defense to do it, it was, it was a cry to our community, a joyful cry to our community and in our ancestors, hey, look, we finally beat one,
And
innocent or
that's why
not.
they had the same outburst that we had in our community, they had in theirs. Because they could not believe
They could
that
not
brother was
believe.
burned in. Yeah, they could not
Right.
believe, they absolutely could not believe that he was able to get the best there was in the business to defend him.
And
And
he beat the system. So nobody was happy that nobody was happy that Nicole was dead. I mean, a
oh
lot of
no.
us, a lot of us, and mostly people from my generation, um, we really didn't care too much for OJ because he left his beautiful black wife for a white girl, and that's all he was messing with was white girls. And at some point, he said he wasn't black; he was something else. I don't even remember what it was. It's just crazy stuff. He frequently said stuff out of his mouth that trying to distance himself from being a black man. And then, critically, he gets arrested for murder, and now he's a black man. Now he wants to reach out to the community. Now he wants the community to support him. I remember that whole side of the story as well.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
there were a lot of nuances. You're absolutely right. There were a lot of nuances. But the thing is, it was a wake-up call for our nation to show, how do you split the citizenship right down the middle? I mean, there were doors slamming and people, they were so upset on one side, and the other side were with tears of joy. There was glee in the streets. And so what is it that gets those kind of conditions operating? Something is being said on that day. It was being said. But you said that he didn't you said that the Coleman the Nicole's family didn't get justice. Him doing those 10 years was justice. Never heard of nothing like that. How you gonna be
well, but I mean, it was he. You mean for the theft?
For the theft of his own stuff? Yeah, he did 10
Yeah, I
years.
mean, but that still isn't justice for them, because the person who they believe
Well, they wanted
murdered
their
their
pound
loved
of
one
flesh.
still walked the
Yeah.
streets without a care.
No, it wasn't that
and,
he walked
and
it without.
Ron Goldman's father publicly said, well, that don't mean nothing. My son is still dead, and he's never faced those charges. I mean, faced those consequences for my son being murdered. So neither family was happy,
No,
per
neither
se.
family was ever going to be whole again. But I'm saying, in the end, there was a pound. I don't know if they got a pound of flesh, but they got a half a pound. He went to jail and was um, um, an outcast. His career was ended. All of his trophies and history and accomplishments were destroyed, and he was shamed. I mean, what more could they do?
I
He
mean,
took that family.
if I'm
He took
craving a
that family.
steak,
So, pardon?
I said, if I'm craving a steak and you pull through a hamburger,
You're being fed. You're being fed. And the bottom line is,
but I'm not being
after
fed what I want.
yeah, okay. Well, you know what they say about
I mean,
you know.
I'll eat if I'm hungry enough. I'll eat the hamburger, but I'm still gonna feel some kind of way because I ordered a steak. Damn it, I didn't order
I
a
understand.
cheeseburger.
Yeah, but you know what? She started out with very, very humble beginnings. That family had the steak because I understand that his family, OJ bought them a car dealership and all kinds of things.
Probably, yeah.
And so, it was like that was his
But at what
wife.
cost, though, right? I mean,
Pardon?
we could, I said at what cost, though? I mean, we could analyze, not now, I'm not doing that now, and I'm not qualified to, but
No.
we could analyze the family, because at the end of the day, yeah, she got that family big up. And, there was irrefutable evidence about his domestic violence, right?
Oh yeah, right, right.
We
And there
could,
was irrefutable there was irrefutable evidence that he was a good father and he loved his children.
So
And that
right,
family
but
didn't
I
want
didn't finish.
him. Hold on, hold on.
But I
And
didn't
that
finish
family
my
didn't want
sentence.
him. Yeah,
I
that
didn't finish
family
my
didn't want
sentence.
him to have nothing to do with those children. They were trying to take
Al,
his kids away from him.
Alvin, you didn't let me finish my sentence.
Okay, go ahead and finish.
There's irrefutable evidence of the domestic violence, but can we make the argument that her family turned a blind eye to it because he was financially supporting them? I mean, can we make the argument that her family, I mean, for lack of a better term, pimped her out? We can examine all of that. Based what you were saying, because you were saying that he was supporting her family, and I'm like, yeah, he was. So, but what is their culpability if they knew that she was being abused and tried to disabuse her of leaving him. I mean, eventually she divorced him, but why would her family, not push to get her out of that situation? Is it because they were financially dependent upon him too? I don't
Don't
know.
know. I don't know. I don't know, but I do. But I do know. I do know that the property that they bulldozed down was not just a 2-bedroom walk up.
High
That
fusion.
that that
And I'm
that was a compound they lived on with guest houses and pools and everything. She was living large, very very
yeah, I
large.
mean, and I feel like we can also make the argument, was he a good father? I don't know.
Yeah,
If well, I mean, but what is a good father? If the children witnessed him beating their mother, does not
now
that go into
we don't know whether the children witnessed him beating his mother.
I don't know either, but that's what I'm saying. We don't know.
Yeah,
If
yeah, yeah, yeah.
if the children witnessed him abusing their mother, does that still make him a good father for exposing them to that visual?
Well, the children saw a lot of stuff. If they say had a problem with addictions, they probably saw a lot of things, a lot of people coming and going, and a lot of stuff was seen by the children.
Maybe.
But the bottom line is, he was their biological father, and none of the kids, they were all old enough to say, "My father mistreats me. I don't want to live with him." And they all, when we
Well,
saw them, they
the boy
loved him.
was kind of young. I think the boy was like 7. Yeah, technically, can they verbalize that? Sure.
Of course they
But
can. Of
I'm also a child who grew up in an abusive household, and I never said anything.
right, right. Because
Never.
maybe nobody
Be-
asked you. I mean, believe me, they asked
no,
him, the children, "Do you want to be around your
no.
father?"
But I can tell you, even if they had asked me,
Mm,
let's just say my mother wasn't murdered.
mm-hmm,
If I had been asked what
mm-hmm,
was going on in the house,
mm-hmm,
not only wouldn't I have said anything, I didn't say anything
mm-hmm,
because I, at that young age, did not want to be responsible for. So my stepfather married my mother when I was 4. Even then, my mother was pregnant with my brother, and there was abuse. I witnessed
mm-hmm,
a lot of abuse, even at the age of 4, that I have not forgotten.
mm-hmm.
And I tried to stop at 4. But in the back of my mind, as I'm growing up and I'm seeing all this domestic violence in my house, I'm not going to say anything because then I'm breaking up the family. And what are me and mommy going to do?
But when you watch,
What's going to happen to me?
absolutely, absolutely, yeah, you're a child. That's why you're a minor and you're under
And
the
the
supervision
sense of
of parents.
obligation and the sense of obligation I felt because this man married my mom and became my father figure when my own father was unavailable.
Mm-hmm.
So don't, a lot of things go on in kids' minds, even at that age. And at that age, their daughter, Sydney, was the same age as I was. Well, I was younger. Like I said, I remembered it from 4, but I think she was 9. At 9, if you had asked me, I wouldn't have said nothing. I'm not breaking this family up. I am not going to be the reason, plus the consequences. I already know how he pops off. He's hit on me too. I'm keeping my mouth shut. Now I started talking about it as I got older. By the time I was 17 or 18, you didn't have to ask me, and I would tell you what a dickhead he was. But by that point, my mother had divorced him, and my mother divorced him when I was 14, and so we were safe at that point. I knew that anything I said, he couldn't touch me. Now, there's no evidence that OJ was violent towards his kids like my stepfather was violent towards me. But that said, people don't really know what kids will how in tune we are at that age. We know way more than we say when it comes to violence, and we know what's absolutely wrong, but we also worry about the consequences. You'd be surprised what my 7-year-old mind was worried about that I shouldn't have been worried about because I'm 7, but I had enough wherewithal and enough emotional intelligence to figure out the consequences of me speaking, even if those consequences were wrong. That's where my head was. So I don't
Yeah,
know, and
I can
go ahead.
appreciate, and that's why the children, when we saw images of them interacting with their dad, it always seemed very warm and loving, and that's something you can't really can tell when a kid is scared or tentative or um,
Yeah, the
and
outside world, including the family, were really surprised when I started talking.
right,
Some
right,
knew,
okay,
some actually factually knew what was going on. Some had an idea. Some were completely clueless. Some thought I was lying
yeah,
because we
yeah,
kept a brave face for the
right,
outside world. We're raised not to air our dirty laundry out.
true, true, and most families still subscribe to that. Um, but I'm just saying to you, um, what lessons have we learned about that case other than the two people were murdered and there was a verdict that split the nation? What did we learn from it so that we can be better and stronger as a nation? I mean, what is it? One thing that came out clear was that there was a double standard in the criminal justice system and a two-tiered system where when justice did prevail, there was a verdict rendered, and people had problems with it, and some people were overjoyed about it. What do we draw from that? And have things gotten better since that verdict?
So I think a few things we learned at the time, but may
Mm-hmm.
have ignored or forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a win, and it's kind of the same thing we learned with the Rodney King incident. There was a window placed in front of white America to show the racial disparity and the racism that happened in the LA system.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that there's a lot of racism and stuff with the New York Police Department as well, but I'll just focus on LAPD. I mean, in police departments across this country. So once again, for the second time in 3 years, the nation was shown just how racist the LAPD is. I don't think that they took much away from that, right? I mean, everybody was shocked when they saw Rodney King getting beat, right? And we were like, yeah, well, welcome to our Wednesdays. Well,
Oh
welcome to
yeah.
a day that is in Y for us. The letter Y and WHY. Um, I feel like one thing that they didn't learn, even though they had the opportunity to learn, is why we rejoiced. To
Mm-hmm.
this day, a lot of people still think that we were happy that a white woman got killed, right?
Oh no, no, totally. That's wrong thinking. Well,
That is
I'm
wrong thinking. But
yeah,
I think that's one of the things they took away from it. I feel like any lesson that was learned or could have been learned has been lost over these past 30 years because it was 30 and a half years ago. It happened June 1994. So, and I feel that it's lost amongst our own people as well, the generation right behind me, the millennials, because a lot of them weren't born at the time, and this is ancient history as far as they're concerned, and they don't know the OJ that we knew, the Heisman Trophy winner. He played for the Bills, right?
mm-hmm.
This amazing football player, this guy who was making movies in Hollywood and the Hertz commercial. And, for my generation, because you're a little older than I am, but for our generations, he was one of the first Black athletes accepted. You know,
Superstar.
when I was growing up, I remember the Mean Joe Green Pepsi Coca-Cola commercial.
Yeah.
It was a Coca-Cola commercial.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw OJ all the time between the Hertz commercial and this other commercial, and then all the movies he was in, and him commentating on the football games. He was in
Yeah.
our face. Everybody knew OJ.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, if I had to make an analogy, not on sports statistics, but just recognizability, um, just like everybody knows LeBron,
Yeah.
everybody knows Michael Jordan,
Right. He was that big a star. You're right. He was that big
everybody
a
knows,
star because he was
yeah.
the first one. But I think the lessons have been not been lost. They've been hard and difficult to experience and to digest. But I think everybody had a uh, deeper understanding of the divide that exists in our nation. I live in Chicago, and it was once defined as the most racially segregated city in our nation. And I remember as a little boy watching Dr. King come here during a time where we were fighting for equal housing, and we went to an city notorious for having racial unrest, and they would turn police cars over in the street and throwing Molotov cocktails. And the interviewer asked Dr. King, he said, Dr. King, you've been hit. And he said, I've been hit so many times, I'm immune to it. He said, are you going to go on with the march? He said, I'm certainly going to go on with the march. But I can safely say I've been in the deepest parts of the South, and never have I experienced racism like I have in Chicago. Now, I was 9 years old when I saw that. And it was so upsetting because this man was just saying, we want to be able to rent a house. We got the money. We want to be able to move in. It's a problem. So it's a tough piece. Then you add it. Then you add that with that's a tough uh, thing to process. But you're right. Children are observing. They're observing, and how do we help them, teach them so that they won't repeat the same mistakes that the older heads have made? That's our job now. And I
Well,
appreciate you. I
go
appreciate you
ahead.
for raising it. I mean, it's not about, that case has been, as far as I'm concerned, he was exonerated and found not guilty, and that's how we have to leave it, because you nitpick it, you nitpick it, you nitpick it, and then what? We had to be comfortable when he went before a jury of his peers. He had a case, and he was found not guilty, and you got to live with it.
Mhm.
Just like we live with when they said, we got some information that he stole some stuff, and we're gonna give him 10 years. We had to live with that.
Well, I think that's another panel. I feel like that I've covered my theory
Yes, you have.
as
You
as
did.
as
Good
much.
job.
Thank you, as much as I can. And again, it's just a theory. You know, um, at the end of the day, the verdict stands, and we can't relitigate that. Now, those
That's
of you
right.
down in the comments, if you appreciated our discussion, feel free to show your love through beans. You could take me out to dinner. You could take me out to a bean dinner. Just throw some up here. I'm going to give uh it's a moment to talk about what she's got coming up, and I'm going to give Rep a moment to talk about Duel of Concepts and how you can find us on YouTube, this, that, and the third. So, Issa, if you are prepared, please go ahead and speak to what you got going on.
Um, well, tomorrow I'm going to be doing a Black state of mind conversation on my panel. That's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, which is going to be a really cool conversation about what it means to have a Black state of mind. What does it mean in the culture? What does it mean politically? What does it mean dating wise? Like, however you want to take that conversation, we can absolutely go there. As far as other things got coming up, I'm still planning them out, so we'll probably start announcing that a little bit later. But yeah, so far just the Black State of Mind panel tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's it. Thanks, people.
Yeah. Rep, what about you? You want to talk about what we got going on as a group?
Um, as a group,
We
as a group.
how you can find us on YouTube and you know the business side of things.
Okay, so to find us on YouTube, we are at https www.youtube.com / Duel of Concepts. That's Duel of Concepts. That's how we can be reached. However, we do have duelofconcepts.com, which is the website discussing our debate league, and all of our events will be posted there as well. So that's what we have going on. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And eventually, if technology cooperated, this discussion will eventually make its way onto YouTube, and you can watch it and comment and like and subscribe and share. So that's it for me, everybody. I appreciate people coming in to listen and people coming up on the panel. You're very much appreciated. Every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, I do a panel called Day Whatever of Trump's BS. I think we're on day 26, 27. And I go over all of his shenanigans for the day. And two reasons I do it at 11 p.m., but the primary reason I do it at 11 p.m. is because he keeps up his BS until about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So I have to wait till he's done saying all the foolishness that he's going to say. And I follow Trump's BS so you don't have to. I also give pretty much civics lessons. You know, a lot of people don't know the amendments and what they are and how they affect us and what he's digging in those amendments. A lot of people did not read and never heard of Project 25, which is the blueprint that he's following. So we like to, you know, make people aware of that, and just kind of a safe haven for those of us who think we're crazy, because we're like, wait a minute, you know, we know all this stuff. How come nobody else knows it, right? So feel free to pop on my panels at 11 p.m. every night, except for tonight because it's after 11. And believe it or not, he was a little quiet tonight, so I don't have much to talk about. Imagine that. That's weird. But again, I'm going to wrap it up. And I thank you all for showing up. And we'll see you tomorrow on Issa's panel. Have a good one. Bye. Lipstick on my teeth again. At least I didn't try. There's always lipstick on my teeth, but at least I didn't try and talk on mute this time. So, you know, I won half the battle. Have a good one, everybody.